This episode is brought to you by Ursa Minor Outfitters. Folks, I'm absolutely in love with my loon mug. It's handmade, it's an absolute piece of art. Whether it's at the office or at the house, people keep asking to check it out. If you're not a loon fan, they also have other beautiful mugs for wildlife fans of moose, bears, and eagles. They specialize in products highlighting the outdoors and local pride through quality design by local artists. They've even started expanding into items beyond mugs, like apparel, dog accessories, and soon candles and more. They also try to partner and highlight other small businesses, and in some cases, forego profits in lieu of charitable giving to help their community, such as the dog rescue. So check them out, UrsaMinorOutfitters.com, and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for our four-legged hiking partners, they also have a portable silicone dog bowl and also a sweet over-the-collar dog bandana. Go check them out, UrsaMinorOutfitters.com, and don't forget to enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. Welcome, everyone, to the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm your host, Ivan, and together we'll embark on a weekly journey connecting with extraordinary hikers from all corners of the U.S. and beyond. Throughout these spring months, we've had the privilege of conversing with remarkable individuals. Their experiences and adventures will leave you yearning to hit the trails. In this week's episode, we're heading down to SoCal to talk to an inspirational individual about their incredible outdoor experiences. Her name is Denise, and you can follow her on Instagram at Denise B. Graves. Denise shares with us some of her favorite trails in and around California, including those found in Yosemite and Channel Islands National Parks. She also shares how she and her husband have been able to get their children out on the trails and exploring the outdoors at a young age. We also learn about her special relationship with Mount Whitney. Without further ado, let's jump into this episode with our guest, Denise. Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm really excited to be speaking with this upcoming guest today. She's from California, and she's been able to visit some amazing places, not just in-state, but across the United States, including some of my favorite places. For our listeners, Denise, they haven't had a chance to follow you on Instagram. Can you share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for having me. I just wanted to start off with that. I'm super excited to be here. Like Ivan said, my name is Denise, and I am born and raised in Southern California. I'm a SoCal girl. We moved away to Colorado for 1 year, and I desperately needed to be back by the ocean. I am married, and I have 2 kids. I have a little boy named Cedar and a little girl named River.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to talk to you, hearing a little bit about your amazing family experiences. With Southern California, especially over the last 2 years, I've really have grown to realize that it's such a diverse landscape just in SoCal. I mean, not talking about California as a whole, but just Southern California. How would you describe the local hiking scenes in and around your local trails?
Well, I'm up in Ventura, so I'm in a little beach town about an hour and a half north of LA and maybe 30 minutes south of Santa Barbara. And I couldn't have asked for like a better place to land. We have a few local hikes. I mean, we're in the hills. We're not in like the big mountains, but we have a few canyons here. Harmon Canyon is a place that I love to frequent when it's open. The rain has definitely done some damage to our local trails. But when Harmon Canyon's open, I love going there. We have Arroyo Verde Park. We have Sulphur Mountain that overlooks both the ocean and the Ojai Valley. And all of these are within a 5 to 10 minute drive from my house. So I'm super blessed to be able to be in this little beach town.
And Denise, you know, one thing I always like to hear from our guests is how they got started hiking. What's been your origin story with the outdoors and hiking experiences?
So I am fortunate enough also that my parents took my sister and I have an older sister. She's 5 years older than I am. They took us camping for as long as I can remember. So both of my parents are from El Salvador. I'm first generation American. They came over here in the 80s and they've been chasing that American dream ever since. And one of the things that my dad really loved was going to the national parks. So there's pictures of me as a 1-year-old in my mom's lap with El Cap in the background. So as long as I can remember, I've been outdoors going on hikes with my dad.
You know, what's great is now you're able to do that with your family. Have you been able to recreate that picture with your children?
You know, I haven't. I should, though. There's so many pictures that I probably should be recreating with them, but we're just trying to create so many memories. Like, we always have so many jam-packed things that we want to try to do. I mean, as much as you can do with little kids. My son, his first time going camping, he was 4 months old. A little backstory with my son, he was born at 31 weeks. He was 9 weeks early, weighed 1 pound, 14 ounces at birth, and he had to stay in the NICU for 2 months before he was able to leave. And we waited a whole 2 months after he was born to take him camping. We did it locally. We did it in Santa Barbara just to be safe. But that was his first camping experience. And then my daughter, she went to full term. But when she was 2 months old, we went up to Hume Lake, which is by, oh my gosh, the national park just escaped me. Kings Canyon, which is by Kings Canyon National Park. And she was only 2 months old at that time. So, I mean, as soon as they're able, like, we got them out and about. We have them in the mountains.
Well, that's so great getting the next generation of hikers and outdoor enthusiasts out so young and getting them involved with outdoors. That's really great. You know, Denise, we've talked about California's diverse landscape, and I'm always curious, especially for Southern California, what are some of your favorite hiking destinations or outdoor destinations that you like to visit on weekends?
If I'm going to be a weekend warrior, I like getting into the Santa Monica Mountains just because those are shorter drive for me. Like, I'm 30 minutes away from like the Boney Mountain Trail, which is on the east side of the Santa Monicas, or a 45-minute drive to the Sandstone Peak, which I know is a SoCal local favorite. If I'm going north, I like doing the Franklin Trail that's out of Carpinteria in the Los Padres National Forest. There's also some really great hikes in Santa Barbara. But the thing with the Santa Barbara County hiking trails is that they don't really have the system in place for parking. I don't want to gatekeep, but I'm always a little hesitant to share some of those trails just because the infrastructure isn't there. And I know they're working on it, which I'm super grateful for. But yeah, I definitely like going either into the Santa Monica Mountains or to Los Padres Mountains.
You know, we're recording this in the middle of spring. The episode is going to be coming out towards the later half of spring. One thing Southern California is known for, and I think this year was just another beautiful year for wildflowers, but you guys have some super blooms that are extremely impressive. Were you able to make it out to see some of these wildflowers or super blooms this spring?
I haven't been out to like where they're like most popular, but just where I live, there's poppies everywhere. Like, I see poppies walking my kids to school in the morning. I live in a place where all these flowers are very prevalent, so I don't really need to drive to go see kind of the fields of it, which is great for anyone who wants to do that and get to see all of that. But as a mom who's very busy with her kids, especially, we've had so many family events these past weeks, like with just birthdays and spring break. I survived spring break with working from home and having 2 kids. So we can't really get out as often as we do. And I also had like the LA Marathon that I ran last month, and my husband's getting ready to do a Fondo, a cycling event this month. So the weekends have either been, family birthdays or kind of just getting prepped for our races and events. So unfortunately, I haven't gone out and seen the big super blooms, and I'm jealous of anyone who has. I hope you guys had an amazing time. My allergies probably wouldn't like it, but I'm sure it's like a sight to see.
Now, Denise, we've talked about some of your national park experiences as a youth, as well as being able to take out the kids to some of these national parks. So, talking about California, you guys have some amazing national parks up and down your state. What are some of your favorite national parks to visit in state? And what experiences have you had out of state as well?
Yeah, so in state, I know everyone's going to say this, and I know Jonathan said it's overrated, but you know what? I'm going to hold firm that Yosemite is the best national park in California. And I grew up going to Yosemite. We went most summers. Since being married, we tried to go at least twice a year. I'm going again next month and in August of this year. That national park has just been woven into the fabric of my life since infancy. And I got engaged in Yosemite. My husband proposed to me at the top of Half Dome. I got engaged there. We did our first pregnancy announcement there. We did our gender reveal with our second child there. I did the John Muir Trail for my 30th birthday. I did Dirty 30, and we started in Mount Whitney. Yeah, we started at Whitney Portal and we went north. So we ended in Yosemite. So I turned 30 in Yosemite. That national park, you can't beat how beautiful it is. And I know it's gotten so congested in the valley. And I try to avoid it in the summer at all costs if I can, because one, it's the valley. It's gonna get hot. Like it can get up to 100 plus degrees in the valley. And then with people on top of each other, like obviously for a lot of people, that's not going to be enjoyable. But we love going in the spring, in the fall. If you can go in the winter, like we've taken our son when he was super, super small up to Badger Pass, the ski resort that they have there. At the time, he was like 3. He has a little snowboard. He used to take snowboarding lessons when we lived in Colorado. So we took him snowboarding up at Badger Pass in Yosemite. Like the high country is amazing. Like you don't just have to stay in the valley. We like to camp at Wawana, which is towards the west end. And then there's the Wawana Hotel if you need to, connect to civilization. They have that there. Or you can go up to Tuolumne. The thing right now is so many of the high country campgrounds are closed for restoration just because the Sierra have been hit with so much snow the past few years that I think Crane Flats has been out of commission, Bridalveil Creek Campground has been out of commission, Tuolumne's been out. There's still some on the fringes that are open, but there's everyone is trying to get into the valley because nothing else is open. So I can understand why some people are just like, gosh, I want to go, but I can't go. And now they have the registration system where you have to register to get in during the high season, which can be annoying, but I also think it's great to be able to regulate how many people can get into the park during peak season, just because the valley is a 7-mile, it's 7 miles long from when you get in from Tunnel View all the way to the back where you get to Happy Isles, that road. And so you can imagine if millions of people are on the valley floor, hundreds of thousands, there's gridlock, there's traffic in Yosemite Valley. And that's not fun for anyone. You're just seeing, these kids just walk by or people on their bikes. And you're like, I want to be that instead of just being stuck in gridlock. So all that to say, I love Yosemite. I love going into the Merced River. My son just got into fishing. So when we were there in November, he caught the biggest trout that my husband had ever seen. My husband grew up fishing. I did not. And, the river was super low and this big fish. I'm like, what in the heck? All I caught was rocks. I caught nothing. I kept getting the thing stuck in this river and I kept asking my husband, I'm like, can you help me? Because I don't want to break the tackle. But yeah, Yosemite, again, it's my favorite. It will always hold a special place in my heart. I've had so many life events there. I hope to continue to have multiple life events there. I wanted to get married in Yosemite, but it was so gosh darn expensive to accommodate 150 people in the valley. So we didn't do that. But if I could, I would have gotten married there. But another one that I love that's in California is the Channel Islands National Park. I see it every time I hop on the freeway to go drop my daughter off at school, or if I have to go into town. I live on the west side of Ventura, which is the old town. So we don't have a lot of the chain stores or chain food places. So if I want to go to Target, I always joke to say that I have to go into town because I have to go to Midtown or the east side to go to Target. So Channel Islands is just an island that I see all the time. Super beautiful. And we've taken the boat out to the island, I believe 4 times now. And we're actually going again in July just because we just love it so much. It's close enough for us. Now that we have to pay for my daughter, it's a little bit expensive to be able to go, but that's what we would have, spent on gas driving somewhere. Whereas here, we're going 10 minutes to the harbor and then they take us out. So I love going to the Channel Islands. The wildflowers there are super beautiful. We haven't kayaked there yet, which is something that I want to do. We have our own kayaks. So when we go in July and we're spending the night, I want to try to see if they can take our kayak for us. They'll let you bring your own kayak. You just have to tell them with enough time in advance so they can have space for it on the boat. But if not, we can probably rent kayaks there because that's something we haven't done with the kids out on the island yet. But they love seeing the island foxes. We've done the ranger program there, so they have their little junior ranger badges. But yeah, as far as in California, Yosemite and the Channel Islands are my two favorites.
Those experiences sound amazing. Here in Washington, Mount Rainier is doing the same thing with doing timed entry starting Memorial Day through the summer. And as a local, especially with it being so close to me, I didn't like it, but I understand it, especially after seeing that people from the west side of the state, there was one day where they waited 2.5 hours just to get into the park. And that just doesn't seem like a fun experience at all if you're having to just deal with traffic. So definitely understand it. It gives people a better experience at the park with not having to deal with congestion and traffic. And I'm really glad that people are going out there and enjoying the park. The only thing, and this is just me being a little biased, is I think if you're a local, even if you're just an in-state local, they should have like in-state permits for in-state residents to be able to go on a whim and possibly get a permit rather than having to book out, 2-3 months in advance.
Yeah, because so if you have a reservation to stay in the park, you don't need to do like a day pass permit for the park. But getting reservations to stay in Yosemite specifically, it is like, holy cannoli, it is so hard. Like my best friend and I, for the last 3 years, on the months that we want, because it's every 15th of the month, Yosemite opens up their reservations for camping for 6 months in advance or something like that, or like 4 months in advance. I forget what it is. So my best friend and I are like on our laptops, like, hey, you're going for this site. I'm going for this site. We have our campground. And the last 2 years, we have not been able to get it. And this year we finally got like spots close to each other. We're only a few sites away. And it was like winning the lottery. We were so excited. We're so pumped because it is so hard. Yeah, it is so hard to get reservations. And I just remember being small and my dad, because I think the system's been in place for a while, but my dad would just, get on the phone and be like, hey, we want to reserve for this day. And I'm like, oh no, Dad, it's not like that anymore. We got, elbows up. We got to get on there like 6:59 a.m. I've got my site, ready and I'm just hitting refresh and it's crazy. Like I troll recreation.gov like you would not believe because that's where I do all my reservations and I'm constantly seeing like if I didn't get a booking, I'm constantly seeing if someone has canceled or, if any last minute spaces have opened up. But yeah, I'm that one. I'm that person that's very eager to be in the mountains. But to answer the second part of your question, for national parks outside of California, with my son, we've gone to Rocky Mountain National Park because when we lived in Colorado, we were about an hour and a half away from that. We lived in Denver proper, and the park was only an hour and a half away. So that was a really great day trip that we were able to do. We went in the winter when it was all snowy. And then in the summer with all the wildflowers, we got to see moose, like just a bunch of wildlife. So I liked going to Rocky Mountain National Park when we lived close by. And then my second favorite park, this is just in general, is the Grand Tetons National Park. So I've only been there twice, but I am confident enough to say that it is my second favorite national park apart from Yosemite. I went when I was 11 for the first time. And then we went again when my son was 2. And it's just, you can't beat that ridge line. It's just so beautiful, like the snow-capped mountains, Jenny Lake, that's like a rock lake. So my son loved it. He loved throwing rocks into that lake. The campground, we saw a fox steal a full thing of bagels from our neighbor campsites. Like Fox Box or Bear Box, like those guys are just out and ready to take your food. So that was a fun experience because a fox was my son's favorite animal for the longest time. And so, yeah, the Grand Tetons are just so beautiful. I'd love to backpack there, but I am terrified of grizzly bears. Like I'm used to, the California black bear and those I was taught from a very young age because I used to love going to the ranger programs. I mean, I still love going to the ranger programs, but I was taught at a very young age that if you encounter a bear, just make yourself look big, just be super loud, and they don't want to bother with you. Grizzly bears, on the other hand, I've heard are aggressive, like like, you have to go into the fetal position if they're trying to attack you. I'm like, oh no, no, no. Yeah. I'm like, you have to carry bear spray. You have to do food a certain way. Like, so I've heard enough to be like, I want to backpack there. But am I mentally, tough enough to backpack there? I don't think so. But who knows? That can change. I mean, maybe once the kids are older. And ever since we had kids, my husband and my thrill level, as far as things that we used to do, has like calmed down a bit because we have to stay alive for our children because we want to see them grow up and we want them, we want to be around for them. So there's certain things that we've taken off of our adventure docket, if you will, that maybe as they get older, we'll start reincorporating into our daily rhythm of life. But yeah, so I'd say the Grand Tetons, Rocky Mountain National Park. We took the kids to the Grand Canyon. Was it last year? It was either last year or the year before. I genuinely forget because we camp so often that it all just like blurs into one another. But we went camping in October to the Grand Canyon and snow was not on the docket at all, but snow came. And the storm that blew in overnight, like you can hear the wind come and then the boom hit the tent. And my parents came with us and I was just like, oh my God, this is how my mom and dad are going to go. And my sister's going to hate me. And like, it's going to be a thing. Like everything is going to be devastated. Like I was so stressed that whole night and my kids slept through the entire thing. And they just woke up to this winter wonderland of this fresh snow dusting on the floor. And I'm like, it must be nice. Mommy was like having a panic attack all night, like worried for my parents who were in the next tent, worried for my kids, worried for my husband. And the kids were just like, Mom, it's snowing. It's snow. And those little moments, like sometimes the highs and lows just come parallel to one another because like the stress of the night and then just the calm and the beauty of the morning and my kids being so amped to be around snow, that was pretty cool. So I'll say Grand Canyon, Rocky Mountains, and Grand Tetons.
Now, Denise, getting back to the Channel Islands, that's one thing that caught my attention is you really have made the outdoor experiences that you've had over the last couple of years a family adventure. And you got a chance to do a great backpacking and camping trip in the Channel Islands recently with your kids. And you're going back, in the next couple of weeks. What's been the experience camping with the kiddos and being able to get them engaged and exploring the outdoors?
So I will say this, it is not for the faint of heart, but parents, you can do it. I believe in you because the amount of times my husband and I have just been in like a pouring sweat panic of did we do the right thing of bringing these kids out to camp because they're either like screaming or crying or someone's had a blowout or someone got car sick, like you name it, we've experienced it for the most part. And sometimes we've had to call trips short, like the one from the Channel Islands, that first backpacking trip. It was kind of, we want to start backpacking with our kids, but before we did that, we wanted something safe and familiar to be able to test run that. So that was our Channel Islands experience. We're comfortable with the area. They have toilets in the event of anything. You do have to carry in everything and carry out everything. Like you have to bring your own water. There's no like filtering system there. So we really set everything up as if we were backpacking. Like I would carry all of mine and my daughter's gear, and my husband carried all of his and our son's gear. And our kids are basically just using our old backpacking gear. So like our old sleeping pads and our old sleeping, backpacking sleeping bags, since we've gotten lighter gear for ourselves. And so we did that. And sure enough, my son, had an accident during a nap and my daughter wasn't fully potty trained yet. So we also had to put like pack in diapers and pack out diapers. And it was foggy, like the fog rolled in. So everything was wet, everything was damp. And we went in July. So we were anticipating like going to the water and getting in the water. And it was just so cold for that. And I have a very classic Hispanic mom who, if your kid is not wearing socks, or a jacket or a beanie, like she will let you know Yeah, they're gonna catch a cold. And I'm posting these pictures of us on the beach in like our down jackets and pants and like no shoes or socks, like todos descalzos. And my mom's like, where are their shoes? Where are their socks? And I'm like, I promise you it's fine. And it's like, but you're wearing down jackets. I'm like, I promise it's fine. And we actually caught an earlier boat back the next day because there's only so much you can do in that weather. You know, like we weren't able to really go and hike and explore as much as we did, but my husband and I made the most of what we did have. So my kids had never tried backpacking food. So we introduced them to that. And my son is a very picky eater. So my son also, apart from being born early, he also has autism. And so taking him out of the familiar is really hard. So because we've tried from infancy to get him in the rhythm of, okay, we're going to go camping. Like this is something that our family does quite often. He now expects us to go camping, but like trying new foods is very difficult. And so I'm like, is he going to like this? Like we had ramen noodles to be safe because, you know, plain noodles without the chicken bouillon is something that he will eat. But we had like the backpackers pantry spaghetti, or not spaghetti, the lasagna and the peak, you know, Alfredo pasta. And he loved it and he ate it all up. And we got them their own little like backpacking collapsible cups that we put their food in. And they also got their own like little tin cups too for hot cocoa. So we tried to make it as fun for them as possible. You know, he was 6 and my daughter was 3. My son's now 7 and she'll be 4 in June. So we're hoping to make this Channel Islands trip last a little bit, not have to come back early and make them carry a little bit more of their stuff. But just for camping trips too, I know some people are like so anti-screen. When my son was small, like, well, I mean, when he was small, we had this portable bouncer. And so we would just set him up like by the table at the campsite in his bouncer, and he would just bounce like crazy while we set up our tent, unloaded the car, you know, like he was just happy as a clam. He's like, I'm outside, the sun's out, you know, I'm just a happy little bouncy boy. We did the same with my daughter when she was old enough because it's a place to keep them contained and keep them safe. Now that they're a little bit older, they both have tablets. I mean, they know that if we're going to go to a remote area, they're not going to have internet. So we'll download movies. So now, like when we get to our camp spot, we'll just let them finish whatever they're watching on their tablet and set everything up. And then if they don't want to help set things up, then they don't have to help. But now they do. Now they like, you know, helping pump up our sleeping pads or, you know, getting snacks because snacks are life for kids. So they'll like get a snack once they're there. Now that they're getting older, we're trying to also give them more responsibility. So I feel like this camping season coming up is going to be fun. Not that previous ones weren't fun, but again, there were times where my husband and I just looked at each other and were like, why are we here? And we've like left a day early, like, you know, we left at night and we're like, we can be home in 3 hours. Let's go. Like, I'll drive. I don't care. Like, let's pack everything up and let's just go home because the winds are crazy. And it's always really like the weather forcing us to go home because it's either like winds, rain, snow. It's never because the kids are hating it out there. It's really, this is not an ideal climate for them to be able to do anything. So let's just call it a day and try to salvage the rest of this trip. We've camped up at Cottonwood Meadows and the winds were really bad. So we had to pack that up. We've camped out of Independence at Onion Valley and the wind was really bad. So we had to like pack up and leave. Again, Channel Islands, we got an earlier boat. Even in the Grand Canyon, like we left a day early and my parents were like, well, we'll pay for we'll help you pay for a hotel in Laughlin. Like, let's just go. I'm like, okay. And then my kids loved it because we never stay in hotels because we're camping people. So my kids are like, oh my gosh, you know, and my parents let my husband and I have a date night that night in a hotel. And we are not like slot machine people. Like that is just not our vibe. But I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this life? You know, like we just like lived it up for the night. But yeah, as much as we can, we've just like my kids have used the potty on the side of the 395. You know, like where we've stopped, we pulled off the road somewhere safe. We took their portable potty out and they've done their business on the side of the road. And we joke, it's a rite of Graves Kid Passage. You have to, you know, have a potty session on the side of the 395.
Now, Denise, kind of switching gears, I mentioned earlier on in the podcast that you have frequented some places that are near and dear to my heart. And one of those places is Hawaii. And you've been visiting Kauai for a number of years. Have you had any outdoor experiences on your visits to Kauai?
Yeah, we love going to Kauai. Prior to meeting my husband, I had never been and he grew up going there. So that's kind of one cool thing about marrying someone is that you're blending these two different walks of life and you're getting to introduce each other's lived experiences. And one thing that we've been able to bring into our life is Kauai and being able to continue to go back there and offer that to our kids. And so when we're there, with the kids, we love going up to Koka'e, which is like a lodge up by the Waimea Canyon. So we love going up there to that area to see the canyon, because it's beautiful. But then we continue the drive up to Koka'e to the lodge and you can feed chickens there. And there's like the tiniest little hike that you can do with the kids there. But like the main thing is the kids love feeding the chickens and there's so many of them. There's just these wild chickens everywhere. And also we love to go to Polyholly Beach because they have a nice, like, safe reef where there's like a pool where the kids can really play in the ocean and I can play in the ocean. I'm not a surfer. My husband is. So it's like that's a good beach for him to go and surf and for me and the kids to just play in the water, play in the sand. When we don't have our kids, we like to go to, I forget what it's called. The river is Waialua. So we've kayaked with Cedar, our oldest, on the Waialua River. And when we go back, we're going back again in November. We're hoping to kayak that again with both of our kids now, but we like going up the Waialua River, and then I think it's called Lost Falls, I want to say, but I'm not too sure. So you kayak a couple of miles in and then you dock your kayak, and I think it's like another mile and a half. I could be totally making these mile numbers up because I usually just follow my husband when we're in Kauai. He plans it and I'm just like, sure, here I am. But from my memory, I think that's what it is. We haven't done that hike in a while, but we're planning to do it again. And it's beautiful. It's super muddy. Like you are going to get your feet wet. You're going to have to cross rivers. Sometimes the trail is just like inundated with water and you have to be okay with getting super muddy. But the waterfall at the end is completely worth it. So beautiful. There's also wild chickens there that love to try to steal your lunch. And then obviously like going to the North Shore, going to Hanalei Bay is beautiful. And this last time that we were there, February of last year, my husband took the kids out on the surfboard each and they got to try to paddle in. So that was super fun. We've also gone all the way to the end over by where the Nepali coast is. We haven't done the Nepali Coast Trail yet. So we're going in November because it's my 10-year wedding anniversary with my husband. And so my parents are going to be with us for the first week that we're there. And so my husband and I are going to try to do as many adventures without the kids. So the Nepali Coast Trail is on our list to do for this fall while we're there.
Switching gears, Denise, one segment that we like to do on the podcast is doing a deep dive into our guests' IG and asking them about a post or a location that captured our attention. And for you, it was multiple posts and it caught our attention because, one of the first ones I saw was that it was your fifth summit on this particular mountain. And yeah, the question I want to ask you is what's been your experiences like on Mount Whitney? And if you could share with us how many times you've been able to summit it.
Oh, good old Mount Whitney. That gal, she's taken a lot of pieces from me. So out of 7 attempts, I have been able to summit it successfully 5 times. So the 2 times that I wasn't able to summit it, the first time my friends and I were backpacking from Cottonwood Lakes to Whitney Portal with the intent of summiting Mount Whitney. But whilst we were coming up to Discovery Pinnacles, like we got caught in this gnarly snowstorm on the 4th of July and had to hunker down on 13,000 feet on the side of the mountain. We packed 5 adults into a 2-person plus tent with one of the people in our party having issues with altitude sickness. And so we're just like giving him all of our water and praying that the storm just lasts through the night and taking turns getting out and rehooking the tent. Yeah, the rain fly, sorry, the rehooking the rain fly back on because the wind was so crazy for that storm. So that was the first time that the mountain shut me down. And then the second time, it was after I had my son, and my husband and I were just going to tag team doing Mount Whitney. I was going to go up first and summit it and come back down while my husband stayed with our son, and then he was going to go up and summit and come back down. And I got maybe about a mile in and started experiencing altitude sickness, which I had never experienced before. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, what the heck is happening? I'm like, I've summited this before, like move your butt, you've got this. And the higher I went, I think I went another half mile and like just had this gnarly headache. And silly me thinking 6 months postpartum with zero training that I could just do Mount Whitney again. And the mountain was like, no, ma'am, go back down, go to your child. So that's exactly what I did. And my husband also got shot down that day because the storm came blowing in. One thing about Whitney is she loves a storm. I have not been on that mountain where I have not been pelted by hail or rain. There's always something happening, and it's usually, up by trail crest where I'm getting pelted by things. But yeah, so I've been able to successfully summit it 5 times. The first time was on a whim. We were going backpacking to Sabrina Lake, and when we went to the ranger office to get our permit, we noticed that there's permits for Whitney, and he wasn't my husband at the time, but he's like, hey, we were engaged. He's like, hey, do you want to just go for it? This was like a few months before our wedding. And I'm like, sure, why not? Like literally had no idea what Whitney is. My husband, he was just like, yeah, let's just go hike this mountain. And I'm like, cool, I love hiking mountains. And so I was able to, summit it as a backpacking trip. And if you have issues with altitude sickness, that's how I'd recommend it because it lets you have time to acclimatize. So the first time I did it was as a backpacking trip. And then I did it for the John Muir Trail. So that was the first time I did it on the Mountaineers route. So with our fully loaded packs, we did the Mountaineers route of Mount Whitney to start a 2-week backpacking trip of the whole John Muir Trail. And I remember getting to Crabtree Meadows and the ranger was like, wait, what did you just do? That's not a smart thing. I was like, I know, but it was our only option. So that's what we did. And it was fine. So prior to that, I had only done it like as a backpacking trip. I had done it once more with like a girls group. That was the first time I did it without my husband. I think the first and only time I've done it without him was with this girls group. And that was really fun. And then the last 2 times I've done it as day hikes. And so we did the Mountaineers route again as a day hike. So we went up the Mountaineers route and then back down the main trail just because going down that last chute before you kind of start to scramble your way up to the summit doesn't seem like fun to me. Like going up it is hard. We go in the summer, so it's not like we're mountaineering in the winter where we're needing crampons and things like that. We're going in the summer. It's much safer. And so we did that, and that was hard. Like we were so worked at the end, but it was fun. And then this mountain, I always say I'm never going to come back, and it keeps drawing me back. She keeps drawing me back. Like I just always want to be up there. We did it again last year for my 37th birthday. And again, last year was such a big snow year in the Sierra. So we had permit to do it for my birthday, and there was still so much snow. The 99 switchbacks were still completely covered. So we did it as like a proper mountaineering climb that time where we had our crampons and our ice axe. And I just remember getting up to where Trail Crest was and just being so tired. I was just like, man, I am worked and we still have to go back down. But, once you get up there, you're only about 2 miles to the summit. And it's like, well, I've already done it a bunch of times before. There was still so much daylight left. We had so much time. And so I pushed through and we get to the summit, and my husband and I just take a nap. We take like a 20-minute nap and we eat some food, and then we make our way back down. And going back down, that chute was so scary because we're basically glissading down and like having to self-arrest, which if you don't know how to do that, I do not recommend you doing it. Again, don't go unprepared. Don't go without knowing what you're getting yourself into. This is my disclaimer. Please be safe on the mountain. Please know the gear. Please know who you're going with. Because coming back down, like I've glissaded before, but like the ice axe was a little bit new to me. And so like I knew how to self-arrest. I felt fine self-arresting. But this one time, like we were doing it in 10 feet, like we were glissading in 10 feet increments and like making sure to arrest so we get down safely, but fast. And there's one time like my ice axe was just not catching and I hit a patch of ice and it hurt so bad. And it wasn't until we got back to camp that I noticed like I had this huge gash on the side of my leg, like on my thigh. It was not pretty and it took a while to heal. And I felt so bad. This is how, like, I guess masochistic I am because I wasn't upset that I was injured. I was upset that this was going to keep me from running because I had my first ultra in Mammoth in 2 months and I had a coach helping me. And I'm like, so I can't run because like I'm injured. And that was when I say like that mountain has taken my blood, sweat, and tears, it's literally taken my blood, sweat, and tears.
Literally,
But
yeah.
that good part of that trip, one of my favorite animals is a pika. It's like this little like rabbity mouse rodent and that only lives in the high alpine country. And on the way back down, I saw a pika and I was just like, oh my gosh. I was so excited because they don't come out very often. And it was like meeping at me and I was like meeping back, like I was chirping back at it. And yeah, it made my day. I was like, happy birthday to me, a pika.
Now, Denise, I'm glad you mentioned the ultra that you're preparing for, because that's one thing that also caught my attention, that you're into running, not just, regular marathons, but you're into trail running. How'd you get into trail running? What have been some of your more memorable races?
So my sweet husband, Matthew, he has always encouraged me to like have my own thing because we have things together. Like we hike, we backpack, we rock climb. These are all things that we do together. But he like surfs and he cycles, like he has those outlets for himself. And I didn't really have an outlet. And so he really recommended trail running to me when we lived in Colorado. And I think I did it maybe like once or twice, but like never really followed through with it. And then after having my daughter, so I had my daughter in 2020, so during COVID, and it was just one of those things where the hormones are crazy when you're pregnant, but then when you deliver a child, like postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, postpartum rage, like all these things are things we talk about, but we like until you've experienced it yourself, you're like, holy cannoli, like this is gnarly. There's like a whole flux of things starting, like that are throwing me off balance. And that's when running kind of came back into the picture of me having something for myself. And so I had my daughter in June, and then July, I saw an ad for the Yosemite half marathon that would take place in like May of 2021. And so I signed up for it. And, after fully healing from having my daughter, like I started running in January of 2021 and I kind of haven't looked back since. It's been really great for my mental health. Just if I'm feeling overstimulated, overwhelmed, like my husband knows like, hey, do you just need a quick 30? And I'm like, yes. If I'm going to burn it on the treadmill or burn it on a trail or just running down by the beach, he gives me that flexibility to be able to go. And I know a lot of people don't have that luxury. So I'm very blessed to have that with him, who's just like so supportive of it. And so it started with the Yosemite half marathon. And then I think I did like a road 10K. And after that, I'm like, well, can I do a full marathon? And so I signed up to do the Mountains to Beach Marathon locally, which it starts in Ojai and ends down at the beach in Ventura. And I wanted to do one locally in case I decided to bail. I could just literally walk home from the course if I didn't want to finish it. And so I did it and I didn't die. And I was like, oh my goodness. Okay. And so that happened. And then, local groups here, because we have the trails, they're like, hey, you want to go on a trail run? And I'm like, sure. So I started running on my local trails here because I'm not very fast. I have asthma. I have really bad allergies. I'm not in it to like PR or, to like qualify for Boston. I know the Boston Marathon happened in April. And so it's like, that's not my life. That's so many of my friends' life. And I love cheering them on. I love, being there for their victories. And they love being there for my victories. Like I'm not fast, but I get out there. I'm still capable of finishing these races, even if it takes me a lot longer than my friends to do. But that's one thing I loved about trail is that I can go slower. I'm not having to like I'm dying going uphill because everyone dies going uphill. Your lungs are like, ma'am, what are you doing? And I'm like, I swear, we'll get to this plateau and I'll give you a break. And then being able to just like go downhill, it married like my already love for the mountains and my newfound love for running. And so I'm joking that this year is like my farewell tour to road races because I want to focus solely on trail races next year. I saw Mammoth Ultra come up in my feed. I think someone had had done it. And we go to Mammoth quite often. We try to go in the winter and in the summer. And so I saw this event and I'm like, oh my gosh, could I do it? And I'm like, well, if I'm going to suffer, I might as well do it in a place I love, Just like when I was doing my first ultra, if I'm going to, suffer, I might as well do it close to home in case I need, an exit strategy. Same thing for Mammoth. I'm like, well, if I do it and completely fail, at least I'm in Mammoth and I can go, go lick my wounds at my favorite spots, go to the lodge and get myself, a bevy or, go and get food from my favorite Mexican restaurant. Like, if it doesn't work out, then at least I'm somewhere I'm comfortable. And so I talked to my husband and he's like, yeah, go for it. Like, he was my biggest champion. And I'm like, well, you think I can get a coach? Because I want to be able to do it and not get injured. And so I actually met him on a trail run through one of our local running groups. Brandon, shout out Coach B of Run Free Running Club. He made, my weekly plans and checked in with me every week. And he and his wife and their friend actually came up to Mammoth and he kind of crewed me a little bit, making sure I was good. It was so cold. And I prefer the cold over the hot, but that race was 32 degrees at the start. My friend Shelby did it with me and we're petite women and it was so cold and so windy. So you start in the village and you have to run 18 miles before you even start the crux of the race, which is a 2-mile ascent up to the summit of Mammoth Mountain, up to 11,000 feet. And it was freezing when I got to the summit. The gondolas were running for spectators. So my husband and my kids met me up there. And I just remember telling my husband, give me your jacket. I'm so cold. I am so cold. And me, a dummy, forgot my running jacket at home on a chair. And the 2 sweaters that I was meant to bring for the race or for this weekend, I forgot at home. And I'm like, of course, because that would be me. That would be my, my luck. And then, yeah, just running. And my coach actually ran his jacket up to me. And I ended the race in his running jacket because my asthma was flaring up. I didn't have my inhaler, the cold wind in my lungs. I was, sorry if this is TMI, I was puking on the side of the mountain because I was coughing so much because my postnasal drip was gnarly. And so I'm doing it again this year because, why not relive that wonderful experience I had? No, literally the rush of finishing and Tim Tollefson, the race director, he's a professional runner. His stoke was high for every single person that crossed that finish line. And it was no different for me. I was yeah, this is my first ultra. He's like, what? He was so amped for me. And then Billy Yang, who's a SoCal, also notable trail runner. And he's a content creator. He was the one handing out the medals. And it was just an overwhelming emotion of just joy. And my husband looks at me and he's like, you did it. You effing did it. And we don't swear unless we're doing something crazy in the backcountry or, in the mountains. And for him to he's like, you effing did it. The actual word though. And I'm he's teary-eyed, I'm teary-eyed. It was just so good. And I've just been kind of, chasing that high. So I'm super excited to do the 50K again this year in Mammoth. And now it's not just going to be my friend Shelby coming with me, but I have 6 other of my girlfriends that are coming. Some of them are Shelby's doing the triple because there's 3 events that weekend. I'm doing the 50K. 4 other of the girls are doing the 50K. 2 of the girls are doing the 26K. And so we're just we are women heroes roar. We are here to conquer this mountain. And I'm so excited and looking forward to it. But I also signed up to do my first 50-mile race, which will be on Catalina Island next year. And I did the 50K back in January, and it was so painful. The last 2 miles are steep downhill on paved road, and my feet were just so done. And so I'm like, okay, well, let's just add 18 more miles. What's another 18 more miles when you're already in pain, right? So that's going to be my first 50-miler. And I told my husband, I'm like, you're coming with me. Because this trip, when I did it in January, was the girls' trip. And I'm like, you're coming with me. There was a guy on a bike, with a bugle, cheering everyone on. I'm like, I need that to be you for the 50 miles because I'm going to need you on the Two Harbors side to make sure I'm still alive. So my husband gravel bikes, and he actually did the whole island. He did the Trans Catalina Trail on his gravel bike. last month. Yeah, last month. So that's what I'm saying. Like, we're kind of in the season where we're a little bit tag team parenting, where I'm able to go out and do these adventures on my own, and he's able to go out and do his adventures on his own. And then we meet together and like take our kids on multiple adventures. So our calendar is always pretty stacked. Like, my family knows if they want me to show up to a family event, they need to tell me months in advance, because I need to be able to make sure we're able to come for it. In a couple of weekends, on the weekend of the 27th, 28th, my niece and nephew, it's their birthdays. Parties are on the 27th, but my husband has a gravel race or a gravel event on the 28th, which also happens to be my mom's birthday. So like, he's leaving Friday for Lone Pine. The kids and I are leaving right after the birthday party to meet up with him in Lone Pine to cheer him on Sunday. So it's like, things like that, very common in our family. But another thing, not just getting the kids outdoors, but we also want the kids seeing their parents do hard things and seeing their parents root each other on when they're doing those hard things and being supportive. Because the amount of races my son has ran across the finish line with me, like, I will hold those moments forever. Like, I will treasure crossing the finish line with my son every single time. I hope it never gets old. And then when we cheer his dad on, I was a cheerleader in high school, so I love cheering other people on. So like, we make signs, we're there with our cowbells, we're ready to make noise and be a spectacle and cheer them on. So that's
That's a
just another
beautiful
thing.
thing.
Yeah.
That's so great. And you are a badass for just everything that you've accomplished. And I think it's great that, you've had those experiences with your son crossing the finish line, and vice versa. You're able to cheer on your husband. And it's a beautiful thing that you guys can also come back together and do family outings. That's a really beautiful thing, Denise, and I really appreciate you sharing those moments with us. This last little bit of the podcast is, general questions that I ask all our guests. And for you, when it comes to regular routines or an end of the hike routine, maybe it's something you do at a summit or at the end of a trail. For some, it's maybe packing their favorite snack or a drink. For others, it's a moment of zen or just the favorite meal afterwards. Is there a regular custom or routine that you do when you reach your destination, or maybe when you make it back out?
When I reach my destination, if it's just like a chill hike, yeah, I'll definitely have a snack ready. Or if like it's a big hike, I'll carry my stove and, do a hot meal, like do a freeze-dried meal and just enjoy a nice hot meal on a summit or something like that. If I'm doing like a trail run up to a summit, or like we did a trail run with San Gorgonio with Outdoor Adventures Plus. And so if I'm doing a trail run, I like a quick turnaround. I did a 21-mile run as well in Yosemite in the backcountry. And so, yeah, it's just kind of like, hey, take your picture and then go back down. But then when I get back down, I'm super ravenous. And so I love going to In-N-Out and getting a double with a Coke. Like, I just need that grease and fat and that sugar. I just need sugar and fat instantly when I get back down.
Maybe that's something I need to keep track, because I think post hike burger is definitely on a lot of people's, must do's after a hike. Now, the other question I'm interested, Denise, is being a family and having to pack not just supplies and gear for you, but also for your kids. Is there any luxury item that you tend to pack that falls outside of the essentials list? For some, it's camera equipment, tripods.
When we're out with the kids, I think we're just packing more snacks. It's just like snacks on snacks on snacks. So it's, if normally, we'll pack them like a treat, like chocolate, something that they don't normally have in their everyday. Like, that would probably be a luxury item. Although they're very much into the astronaut ice cream right now. So whenever we go to whenever we go to REI, they always come home with the astronaut ice cream if they've, behaved on the outing. And so I think that would probably be like our weird out of the norm luxury item, would be the astronaut ice cream.
Okay, interesting. I like it. Now, you've been able to share a couple bucket list items and things that you'll be doing in the next year or two. Are there any hiking specific goals that you have for 2024 for you or your family?
Not really. I mean, I'm planning, I guess it would be a hike for someone who's not running it. But so last year I did a trail run from Tuolumne to Happy Isles to the Valley Floor, which is 21 miles on the JMT. And this year, when we're there in August, it's a training run for Mammoth Trail Fest. I want to do it again, but, do it from the valley floor and then probably, up 10 miles and back. Try to do like at least a 22-mile run. But the reason I didn't do it from the valley floor last year was because I was a wimp and I didn't want to do all that elevation gain. But now knowing the beast that is the Mammoth 50K, I'm like, no, I got to do it. Like I have to just suck it up and do that steep incline from the valley floor to Little Yosemite Valley and just get it over with. And so I think that's one thing I am looking forward to doing is testing my limit on that trail with all the elevation gain that it requires.
Well, I'm definitely stoked to be able to see all your family outings and your personal outing this year. I know you have a lot of great things scheduled for the next, 12 months. This last little section of the podcast, Denise, is the this or that questions. I'm going to give you 10 hiking related topics, and you just choose which one you prefer out of the two. And the first one is, do you prefer a steep incline or a steep decline?
Steep incline, which I never thought I'd say, but steep decline is so dangerous for clumsy people like me.
Now, this one's a tough one, but waterfalls or summits?
Summits.
And then I'm interested in this one because you're a trail runner and a backpacker, but switchbacks are straight up.
Honestly, it depends on the day. Like how far in the trip am I? You know what I mean? Because sometimes you just want a long, gradual climb just to, to zone out and just like focus on the gradual climb. And then sometimes you're rage hiking on a backpacking trip where you've taken a wrong turn and now you have to correct course and you're just rage hiking up a steep hill and it feels really good. So I guess kind of both, depending on my mood.
And then do you use trek poles or do you prefer to hike freehand?
For hiking, I definitely use trekking poles. For running, I don't. But when I'm doing a backpacking trip, I feel like it just helps support the weight of the pack. It helps offset it. So I like hiking with trekking poles.
And then I think I know the answer to this one, but when it comes to footwear, trail runners or hiking boots?
Oh, I have now become a trail runner believer. Before, I was strictly hiking boots because I have weak ankles, but since I've been able to strengthen those, I am a trail runner girly.
This is the trail system question, but do you prefer a loop trail or an outback trail?
I like a loop trail.
And then when it comes to your water carrying system, do you prefer carrying a water bottle or a hydration pack like a Camelback?
I like having a hydration pack for just plain water, and I'll carry a water bottle or like a collapsible flask with electrolytes in it. So both. Yeah.
These two are the hardest ones. Sunset hikes or sunrise hikes?
Sunset hikes. I am not a morning person.
And then spring wildflowers or fall colors?
Fall colors.
And the last one is long gradual hikes or short and steep hikes?
I like long gradual hikes. Maybe not in the moment sometimes, but if I'm thinking about it, I do love a long gradual hike.
Well, that was it, Denise, for the this or that questions. For our listeners that haven't had a chance to follow you on Instagram, where can they follow you on Instagram? And is there any other social media outlets?
Yeah, so on Instagram, I'm at Denise B. Graves. That's B as in boy or B as in Bridget. That's my middle name. And I just started the TikTok. So I am on TikTok, which is mainly like my running content there. If you want to follow on my running journey, currently I'm training right now for the San Francisco Marathon in July and Mammoth 50K in September. Those are my two races coming up. And I think I'm also at Denise B. Graves on TikTok. If you guys want to follow me there, it's just a lot of silly running content. And then Instagram is more like my crochet and my family adventures and also some running content and some Taylor Swift. Sorry. I love that girl.
We'll be sure to share those links in the episode show notes so people can check them out. Denise, you're absolute inspiration, and I'm so excited to see what comes for you and your family in the next year. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to speak with us, and look forward to seeing what 2024 has to bring for you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was amazing. You're like my official first podcast, so I'm super honored that you had me on, so thank you.
And that brings us to the end of this episode alongside Denise. We extend a heartfelt thanks to them for coming on the podcast. Make sure to stay connected and follow them on Instagram at Denise B. Graves. Don't forget to check out the episode show notes for more. We have an incredible lineup of episodes planned throughout the spring months, and we can't wait to share them with you. New episodes will be dropping every Monday with occasional bonus episodes on Fridays. To ensure you never miss out on those thrilling tales, remember to hit that like and subscribe button. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to join our vibrant community on Instagram at Hikes and Mics. We'll be sharing episode visuals, my own personal hiking content, and so much more. Let's stay connected and continue to inspire each other on this remarkable journey. As we bid farewell, remember to tread those happy trails, embrace the great outdoors, and keep the spirit of adventure alive. Until next time, my fellow explorers, happy hiking. This episode's music was created by Ketsa. Follow him on Instagram at Ketsa Music. This episode is brought to you by Flip Socks. Whether you're on the trail, on the job, or in the yard, Flip Socks will keep Mother Nature out of your boots with their innovative nylon sleeve. You no longer need to worry about any annoying debris getting trapped in your boots during your hikes. Simply flip down the nylon sleeve over any boot to prevent Mother Nature from finding its way inside, keeping your feet comfortable all day long. To get your first pair, visit flipsockswithaz.com and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for listeners who use the promo code at checkout, I'll be donating 100% of the Season 2 promo code proceeds to Big City Mountaineers, who provide transformative experiences through connections to nature that strengthen life skills and build community for youth and disinvested communities across the nation. So if you're tired of bits and pieces of the trail finding its way into your hiking boots, pick up a pair of Flip Socks today with the promo code HikesMikes10 to get 10% off. For website and promo code, see the episode description.